Hello, Baba Yellow Seas. I donated that. That's right. So this is about world, all subjects. I'm expert on the English nature of English. Now, see, the experts on each of the sciences, they valued them abridged because everyone was hurt, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to. Otherwise, they would be sensed, including if it's a majority of people, including if it's everyone. That's why we have to understand how hyper-additional nature works. Because a human fact treatment nature breaching method understood this. Because the ancients, before the sciences became permanently foreign influenced, they were shown by nature itself how to answer our questions, like why and how we are individual of a species individual from the other species bodies. And we have grouped difference slash S. See, this is left out where our names have been assigned, entertained, assigned, use slash S. All voicings for humanity, all descriptions of it. So you guys are now styles pretending other or being sensed through your own as A through Z, no matter where the species body is. Hypercriminal foreign influences are manifest. Also within that is criminal insidiousness natures of acts and things and names. Like wrongdoers, wrongdoing itself, like predicate acts. See, the sciences share an identity. Boxing, martial arts, and wrestling share grouped for how it's constantly demonstrating how they don't share an identity comes with demonstration of the same thing. And how it is a hyper additional nature. Any subject we deal with that is true always that we know it comes with its complete identity of relationship to itself, even though we only have an extent of the identity of everything that we could discern, with every subject individually grouped too. We are grouped different slash S and from the other species volumes because it shows us this. Its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that are equally increasing per science of relativity slash hyperrelativity to the extent of itself that we are, and to that being distinct from its extent of itself, that is juxtaposed temporary slash lasting, and the part that will not juxtapose, but that one way where it's just like, in other words, your complete body, your complete identity will not juxtapose with that part of your complete identity. That is the tip of your fingernail. But your, in other words, it is your complete identity anyway. But that comes also with the demonstration of this identity of hyper simultaneous nature, because that is one of the things that all the species are at the same time as value. One of the values they are constantly, and we are constantly, is a simultaneous nature this way. I'm using nature for its nature as another word for identity. And for this reason, because we are just like the tip of our nail is a semi-nature relationship to our complete identity. Our complete identity is a semi-nature relationship to that which is too big for us to fit in us. But wherever there is even the extent of a subject, therefore a person, its complete identity relationship to itself is inseparable from it. And the value of that equally increasing. Then three identities of zero were generated. which is more probably and demonstrably more practical to teach how they taught English history. And English before the sciences became criminally foreign influence. They were working together, human difference. They couldn't believe that we would forget because nature's constantly a demonstration of it. How to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures out of nowhere. How to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and nowhere, and natures to disappear more and more. Not by killing, by appreciating how we are the species volume science, where this nature has assigned A through Z names and differences, even if you make something up. In other words, art is a part of this. All the sciences share an identity. That's why, again, boxing, martial arts, and wrestling, they're about fighting. But they're also about that one way that there is to fight, where even who lose, everyone wins. Who's going to think the best? Oh, who could do this so we don't have to worry about this anymore? In other words, it's not. And one thing, in other words, first you have to have unabridged. That's not an invention. That's because of the relativity of its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that. What the subject of the Constitution unabridged is, which is increasingly comes with the hyper-additional value of its original entrenchments, its original abridgments, and hyper-additionally value are how those abridgments, the actual causes of them, are still being and haven't been blamed on other things, others ourselves, like slavery. That was entrenched north and south. And we were supposed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington, which would have brought up how James Madison and the founders behind him, he agreed to use their plan. And then they had to go and counter extort at 13 locations in more than 13 colonies. But to begin, where no one had a means to defend themselves from that breaching system, which didn't allow it. Once they broke the rules, because they were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded, counter-forced, counter-hurt, and counter-persuaded to. And this is what we're supposed to tell and understand. A little kid's supposed to understand this. There was a breaching method sickly, distinctly against every human name and difference, A through Z. To understand this, you're supposed to understand the difference between president/chief. But even that, they came through campuses that told other things, others themselves. There's a certain type of victim/hyper victim that this breaching method will only allow spoken to little kids. They have been putting fake things in databases of all ages and natures. And this breaching method knew that nature would demonstrate that vertically and horizontally. The agencies have confessions relative here. The courts have confessions relative here. They have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed the difference between what is said and what is communicated about. They exploit that as roles. At the same time, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones originally and still. That means tactically distinct, and the difference of distinct natures of organized crime. And the countering bodies, the difference of that as collusion. Now, how part of the way they get away with it is because the collusion is per use/s of where even that all sides miss. All sides in criminal and civil cases, the names at the courts, the names with the prisons tied to them, for example, the names at the state corrections offices, the names at the state judicial branch offices, Next, their names with conjunctions and adjacent /s to that, where people describe instances in names. There's this method used at names A through Z as countries too. First, it used locations, areas, and states, and sustained that. And in other words, and it had all the names as the phenomenon of countries, where locations had to come out of that by relying upon groupings and voicings for humanity, tactical ulterior, from an as we could defend itself and afford discern the value of the nature of the Constitution of the Republic for which we stand, unabridged. See, it's short words with things that are simple, easy to understand. And what is complicated, that has this, the Constitution unabridged, and per nature itself has this, other than we have people that we have discerned by the experts at A through Z, per this method of child abuse. Because that was the short words and is the short words that are obligated by the Constitution unabridged, obligated by science. There was a human fact treating nature, torture, extortion, and slavery method against every single person in difference, sickly distinctly. And that had been sustained since before modern religion's messengers were born. And the reason roles with it were forced sustained, because no one realized while there was roles, even though it wasn't there, what could I do about that? While everyone's thinking and speaking like that, other things, others ourselves, were being blamed for what was causing everything, the worst negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and counters to it as collusion. Can we never left out? How come we left out even though it's recorded? See, they're pretending other is recorded because they were locked in place. Foreign and domestic intelligence, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of names A through Z, news at the same time, all sides in criminal and civil cases, even next to the deposition spots. In other words, there is a method to maintain a quality of fact treatment nature that is hyper criminally foreign influenced. I'm not a lawyer. Lawyers are recorded since founding with the bar itself, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, relative to the importance of understanding how clearer than day what is actually recorded at colleges and universities, medical campuses, fire campuses. See, Judge Napolitano has all these countries and experts on them. And where we have to have humanity has to be taught how to use evidences and to be used, the difference between what is known or not known. For example, the beginning of the Old Testament and the beginning of the Quran, they have parts that direct how to defend those books. But instead of defending them with consciousness of that, the people who attack the books and the people that defend the books, and the difference is the people defending syntactically logic with their for syntax, reason and principles of reason. I don't know, reason principle is I don't know if my father made that up or he read that. I probably read, in other words, but reason principle. I'm not using, in other words, premises. See, but we have experts on premises who have criminally foreign influence and tactically delusions raw descriptions of what is proper. Now, this is also relative to where and to how, Just because something is published doesn't mean it's legitimate. Our founders, behind James Madison and his plan, they went to go get George Washington to help. And everyone had to hide about their motivations, actual, and had to use truth to do that. Not realizing this preaching method needs truths used for lies and or to screen lies and or to screen motivations. Increasingly, how do you know when there are other people involved with conversations? That doesn't mean you're going to say that, because there were also hyper foreign bodies involved. In other words, these people need things to say, oh, it's just that. Or it's between this person, that, good or bad. And simultaneously, the difference of that. There are means to use the hyper-evidential to show how countries A through Z, we never see suits and ties encounters, exceptions as collusions. We can discern this using the hyper-evidential. So the FBI has a Joshua Julian and has a whole bunch of people involved with predicate acts, with courts, judges, and prosecutors, and with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and foreign and domestic military. There are people that live near him. I've never been to his house. I don't know which house it is. And in other words, but there were people that brought him up in their confessions, and he demonstrated it was true. He has rules with the Facebook page of a principal child defender, with prosecutors and judges, family members involved with the rest of the names involved, and retired police chiefs, the police chief Cintron. There are people with the name Mazzucato who've been took picture, tried to make a fake exception of me knowing them years ago. With a Mazzucato Bakery is involved with the police chief Cintron, and with a police chief years before him, involved with the same house/S. Further with a Phil Colo, per Bob Chase, and Whiting Forensics through time, involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and body dumping spots, and other natures of organized crime, acts, and names. Involved with them also all kinds of natures of organized crime, formal, informal at the same time, foreign and domestic military, used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically, delusions raw. Hartford Hospital has a whole bunch, and New Britain's hospital has a whole bunch of people that have roles with the names next to Central Connecticut State University and next to Trinity College who have connections to each other. And intelligence families from Wethersfield, their kids and their adults have been putting fake things in databases since they were kids. You ever wonder how they had the audacity, when we have black pupils, whites of eyes, to speak about the value of their oaths? See, there are uses of other communicated than is pretended. And relative to how this preaching method uses, it employed self-value and roles self-valued, other communicated for James Madison and our founders behind him and their plan. And no one was honest about the extortion of George Washington, which we know he was tortured too. No one was honest about that. There were roles with the torture methods, /S, whole bunch of torture methods before the World Trade Center attack, in the World Trade Center attack context and since. Old Town Cafe was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, and buildings next to there, and homes next to there, and the fire department next to there, all the fire departments. They have rules with the different police forms, the FBI, the CIA, state police interstate, with people from Wethersfield, interbranch, intelligence, and exceptions tied to them. It rules overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and people who run the schools and security, the difference of that at the same time. See, when they're making instances, descriptions, and defenses of crime treatments syntactically, it was his as collusions with way worse too. And so, in other words, this made phenomenon manifest where there's demonstrations of that to themselves. But they don't understand it themselves because they were used remotely since they were kids, attached to fake ties, fake nature of ties to other people. These are intelligence families next to Fox Connecticut News and next to WFSB and next to WTNH, who have been planting predicate acts with facts, faked evidences as collusions on off crime scenes and at corners of streets and with names along roads and routes in Wethersfield next to schools, at corners of streets. The Witness Protection Program is also involved, foreign domestic military. There are people associated with Eric Oliveri, Mike Roberts, and I don't know the other people's name, but these are black themed, KKK themed collusions with predicate acts, with facts, with conversations with people's principals and teachers behind their backs that are criminally foreign influenced. And then they make fake exceptions in their face where there's in other words, they're putting fake audio and video onto campuses that are filmed 24/7. They're just putting fake ties, fake nature ties to people. They're trying to make people walk by each other, take a picture, make it look like they were speaking. In other words, because relative to where it is recorded, all sides in criminal and civil cases, the interbranch names, their family members, the news at the same time, their sources, the intelligence tied to them. Sandy Hook has a prison in Sandy Hook, which is a campus. They have Fire Campus. They have the courts involved with them. I don't know if the state corrections offices, which is on the town line. These are people with the name Cololo and DeMoro, that an O'Brien family, and that mayors, people associated with mayors, and a Gold family. I didn't respond. They saw me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. And non-verbally. These are people involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. They make non-verbal confirmations and demonstrations of roles with a pattern of predicate acts, with evidences, planting evidences, people, identity theft, fraud, slanders, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since, as people enter cities and interstates with Connecticut. Roles with uses remotely of investigators. Therefore, people using words like security, using words like knowledge, and we're relative and increasingly relevant. Our use of exceptions and how I was using exceptions and exception nature. Where Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, had recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with people with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with his lawyer, involved with leaders of campuses, including as deans and their family members, and principals of schools, and their roles with all these different countries, and how it hurts everyone sickly distinctly. But how it helps them sickly distinctly also as collusions to keep the suits and ties. In other words, there's no one at the helm. There's no one at the helm of practical reason, to use Immanuel Kant's phrase. You guys can't even explain the world wars properly. You can't even explain the religious, what's sensible with religion. And then you have the delusions, you have fake sides. You have the people running in with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the family members of the campuses, including the fire campuses. They all run in to hide life progressions at the medical locations. They have words like addiction used apart for this torture method, where there's collusions, where the difference between the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of people A through Z as logic, syntax. per the campuses, though. We have means like that to show using the hyper-evidential. How to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures out of nowhere. How to overcome those impositions we had decades to overcome. It's not just nuclear weapons. So you guys take subjects and you leave out exceptions and exception nature. How nature communicates this way. Again, I'm using nature as a word. We can discern it as identity, as a different way to discern identities. Why? Because identity has relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. Value /S individually grouped and together simultaneously. They come with demonstration of the hyper-simultaneous. That which will not mix with temporary /lasting, but its way. And this is with Earth's a special difference. This is with your own a special difference. Hyper additionally from, but not as Earth, but as it anyway. Because it completes everything. And it's only increasing. Where value is nature / nature as value. Simultaneously, this being conversely too, distinctly, non-distinctly. And hyper-simultaneous for its identity relationship to itself and the value of that, which the ancients revealed languages and reception of and appreciation of, which is a quality of diffusion, in diffusion of, positive or negative. And the sciences were revealed. In other words, there's function /S, by where they appear not to share an identity, but they do. Ugh. And at New York City, there are little kids, and about each age of people who were born at New York City, for example, sickly distinctly from any other place, A through Z, and where the human species body is. And then in America, too, sickly distinctly from the founding locations. As them too, as it. But slavery was entrenched sickly distinctly north and south because there was a breaching method /S, function /S by that, where it had assigned use /S since before modern religions came about, where it assigned negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature that it caused. Self-valued uses of the difference between the human species bodies, individual as an individual body, this humanity's difference, and non-difference, no, because the other species of bodies are also this species volume thing, where it's a species body of individual bodies, and there is group difference /S. I tell best so many ways, boxing. I just things for long. Thank you. Mother!